We're here today to address a potential resolution that was originally introduced by the Cal State Fullerton GOP Club and supported by conservative students. Now, we recognize that we don't have the full details of the resolution, for it is in an editing process, but we do know what has been proposed, as it has been shared through the Daily Tie-In, social media, and through tabling demonstrations by the GOP and supporting clubs. The issue with ASI interpreting and defining freedom of speech now and so quickly is that there has not been enough research gathered to understand the potential implications of what you're doing. The U.S. Constitution has been challenged and amended due to forms of discrimination and violence it has produced. Our Constitution is not perfect, and we must continue challenging it. Principles based on old ideologies are negatively impacting the lived experiences of minority groups. Now, we do not have a perfect solution, but we know we must take progressive steps. We ask that ASI not jump so quickly into this action. You may think you are simply defining the lawful truth, but these actions encourage behavior, and these opinions develop into ideologies that we have seen with conservatives nationwide. These ideas can potentially harm other groups. I want you all to reflect on the process of the timing of the LGBTQ resolution that took place last year. It took Taylor weeks upon weeks to address concerns, policies, and recent research to produce that document. In the case, you're taking in this case, you're taking a pre-written document and are quickly going through an editing process. Please pump the brakes on that and do what previous Director Taylor did. Also, at the same time, realize this conservative version of freedom of speech actually contradicts the LGBTQ resolution and the potential resolution in supporting undocumented students. There is a lot to be addressed, and communities who need to be heard. Don't put up a potential roadblock. And who knows, with given time, maybe a resolution regarding speech can make everyone happy if we actually talk about this. Thank you.
Hello everybody, my name is Dania Salgado. I'm a psychology major in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I'm here today to stand against the resolution that the college Republicans are currently trying to pass to the Board of Directors. This resolution is being masked as an issue of freedom of speech when the implications of passing this resolution are much more deeply rooted than that. To pass a resolution of this type will create a domino effect that creates negative repercussions for the marginalized communities that have already had a difficult time on campus and the professors that this resolution is targeting. If you support this resolution, you are fostering a hostile environment and on campus for teachers who will fear whether or not expressing their views will lead to consequences. This is especially worrisome in the College of Humanities and Social Science, when much of our curriculum is based on controversial issues, both that have already been resolved or are currently under scrutiny. Under the University Policy Statement, Student Rights and Responsibilities, Part B, Section 1, it reads, students are expected to respect the intellectual views of faculty and the reasoned process of academic debate. Members of the YAL have stated themselves in interviews that college is a place where we come to be exposed to different opinions. Yet, when the ideas do not match their own, they are presented that they suddenly don't feel safe. What about the groups that have been speaking out all semester about their marginalization, yet no one would listen? Kayla Bates said herself, I think students need to feel heard, and I do think the College Republicans Club did feel heard in this meeting, talking about the past meeting when they did propose. Where was this the entire semester when the members of the marginalized groups have continued to try to gain support from the Board of Directors? Where was the follow-up when the LGBTQ community came and sat in on your guys' meeting a few weeks ago as well? Your stance on this resolution only answers that are the only answers that these groups are hearing. Your lack of acknowledgement toward these issues has already shown them who is really being heard in these statements. Creating a resolution like this can open up a window of entirely new issues that are hiding behind the words freedom of speech. By simply calling this issue one of freedom of speech, it is sugarcoating the validation of hate speech on campus towards those who have already found little voice and support. This campus has policies protecting students that are being discriminated against based on national origin, sexual orientation, political affiliation, and political philosophy. Yet this resolution would make it okay for people to target these communities because it's protecting their freedom of speech. Where do we draw the lines at freedom of speech? How many students must feel threatened on this campus for someone to listen? This all stems from the conservative groups on campus feeling threatened. But what about those students that feel threatened by you voicing that they're immigrants not welcome here, or about their sexual orientation is not real? Are you as a board telling me that you can fully support this resolution knowing it will not do anything to stop the harassment that is being faced by members of this campus? I urge you not to continue on with this resolution for fear of my LGBTQ and undocumented brothers and sisters. How can I console them when they walk through a campus where there's signs that delegitimize their entire existence, reading "Go back home" and "Build a wall"? If you go forward with this resolution, you'll be sending a clear message to the students, but it will not be one of support.
As a half Mexican, half Persian daughter of a Muslim man and Christian woman, and as someone who struggles with a disability, being a mental illness, and the youngest at my professional job, I've had my fair share of verbal attacks and societal stigmas. As a person who has heard and befriended many individuals of color, of different sexual preferences, and who didn't choose where they were born, but want the same opportunities we are offered here, I am a firm believer in freedom of speech and diversity. There are many individuals hurting right now, and many who would like others to understand those pains. As a critical thinker, I have conversations with people who believe differently than I do. I also do not consider myself married to certain beliefs or parties. I am open-minded, and I can change my mind in response to the freedom of speech of others, facts, and experiences. However, a Hayek leader today has been using hate speech, and it is becoming normalized, and now is being considered to become protected. This is influencing future leaders and allowing discrimination. Hate speech is not free speech. Hate speech is bullying. It is picking out certain minority groups, affects mental health, makes people feel unsafe, and takes away the reason that I chose to come to this school and the quality that our school is known for, which is diversity. It contradicts itself, the fact that we are considering protecting hate speech, because the goal is to not quiet people's beliefs, but it is essentially doing that for groups that contribute to our diversity. Because people will not advocate for themselves, ask for support or help, or feel welcome to share stories for awareness of their issues if they do not feel safe or like the community cares. Despite the fact that there has been social media and in-person bullying from the organization who is requesting protection, I'm not here today against anyone, but rather certain behaviors that need to be addressed and should not be further normalized. This consideration sounds to me like how Safe Fullerton is unlike the public school districts, which implement a zero-tolerance policy against bullying. This sounds to me like how Safe Fullerton is going to put up a 50% tolerance of bullying, where individuals can share their beliefs about other people and personally offend them, but those groups who are being offended and just want to be heard regarding their own lives cannot defend themselves, advocate for their groups, or even feel welcome to stay here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Isaiah, and I am a third-year student in a human services major and a philosophy major. First, what I want to talk about is this resolution that my fellow students are talking about. Comes with this idea steeped in an idea of positivism, which is this falsely objective view that, honestly, through many contemporary and past philosophical works have just been shown to be non-existent, and there's always an implicit bias in all of our points of view. There's always someone interpreting this point of view and what's being said. So what we have to do is question who is the one deciding who is too leftist, who is too extreme, and who is too radical, and explain why those views are being seen as such. Going off of that, a universal objective truth, there is only little truths that are created in specific situations. This is something that's constantly perpetuating and honestly is a given at this point in philosophical works, and it's kind of odd to me that we would try to go back to points of views from the 70s, 80s, and pre that to try to make judgments now, but whatever. The amendment, the defense of this idea of free speech comes with this idea that it's an amendment, right? The First Amendment is what we need to uphold because of in it itself. A lot of people will say that it's outdated. I would say it's not even outdated. It was just never dated. There was at no point where the amendments that were created in the Constitution were applicable to reality, were moral, were ethical. We have to constantly question that. And this resolution is just a move to prevent ourselves from wanting to question that. It's to create universal truth so we don't have to actually dig deep into what is actually being said and what is actually being done. When we look at the works of someone like Eve Tuck, who deals with settler colonial theory. What she often writes about is how when students get to college, it's the first time they are ever exposed to colonial theory, settler colonial theory, or decolonial theory. I strongly suspect that those types of theories would be considered too leftist or too radical because they go so much against the status quo implicit actions that we want to take. Writers like Mark Lamont Hill talk about how sentiments about the anti-black state and mass incarceration and the war on drugs and the school-to-prison pipeline are theories that are first discovered by his black students when they get to college, and that's the first time they're exposed to them. I suspect that would be the type of teaching that would be considered too leftist and too extreme. So I would urge the council, when you're thinking about this, who is the one going to be deciding what is too leftist? They want to record the classes and report the teachers if they consider them too leftist. Well, who's going to be deciding that?
Thank you, that is 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Garcia. I'm a triple major here, American Studies, Chicano Studies, and Philosophy with a concentration in law, moral, and social justice. Here I am representing myself and also some other community members who have felt that the way in which we're interpreting violence is starting to look a little bit too conservative. So I think the reason why this resolution was proposed was because there was an altercation on campus, and that's not something that we should be dealing with. That's something that it's a legal issue that can be dealt with outside of these parameters. It shouldn't be a reason to incite a reaction without actually taking the steps and the processes, and like everybody else has said, just really trying to figure out what would be the implications or the outcomes of this resolution. Well, I think right now we're having a very limited interpretation of what violence is. Countless times, as mentioned by Liz and others, there has been moments when you have heard that there is violence happening on campus, and the interpretation of violence is one that is talking about speech acts as being violence or symbolic forms of violence, and yet those kinds of violences are not necessarily ever taken into consideration, specifically by the group that is proposing this resolution. This is why we think that if it's possible for us to have some sort of common ground, right, it is going to be about reducing violence on campus, but that means that you also have to listen to our interpretations of violence and all the research that is backed up by those interpretations by violence, and also moving forward with increasing safety on campus, which means that one way we can do that is to have preventative measures. A preventative measure that we can do is actually allow students to foster and learn about the other side of the issue. We've been learning their side of the issue for a very long time. As Isaiah was saying, we don't get any of this information about colonialism, about race, or about gender or class until we get to college. So it's very important that at least at these moments, our interpretations of violence, our interpretations of what safety means on campus are also listened to, and that this resolution takes its step back or isn't passed at all until that side of the issue is also listened to. So unless we see that those concerns about violence and safety are also being brought up and that are also willing to be backed up by this organization, we don't think that you're necessarily doing the job of increasing safety on this campus, because what you're doing is, as many have already said, protecting one form of freedom of speech. That protection is going to create more problems against students, and it's only going to make it possible for us to separate one another and continue to not talk to one another. Look, at the very least, we can come together and say we all want safety on our campus and we all want to reduce violence. Start listening to us and our interpretations of violence as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm a graduate student at Cal State Fullerton in the Communications Department, and I mainly have two concerns about the resolution that's being passed. First, I want to make sure that I'm not here to comment on the actual situation involving the professor. What we're here for is more so analyzing what is the precedent that this resolution is permitting. One, we argue that this is going to set a bad precedent in which someone is presumed to be guilty before they can be innocent, and that the university becomes an extra-legal jurisdiction that punishes and disciplines people based on that power. And so if they are confident that he is guilty of what he has done, that is something for the courts to decide, but not something that is under the jurisdiction of the university. The second argument is that this is going to cause a slippery slope, in which there is already discussions about how physical assault is not the only kind of violence, that there are verbal forms of violence that Chester and Pierce cited when he talked about microaggressions, who is a Harvard psychiatrist, and that the Supreme Court also defined hate speech as not being protected under the First Amendment based on the idea if it counts under fighting words. So if you are going to create a system in which the university has legal jurisdiction to punish all forms of violence, then what you're going to have is both sides are going to fight each other and end up clogging this whole system and having the university be ready to make that decision. So based on the idea that this resolution has been rushed, it seems that the board nor the people who are advocating for this resolution are even ready to have the jurisdiction to mediate this conflict.
Thank you.